right, this is Daf Yomi in motion number 792. Today we're going to learn Daf Ayin Beis in Metzia, and we're going to be speaking about Ribis b'noichri, Ribis with Goyim.
Nochri.
Nochri means Goyim or Christians?
It means Goyim in this context. Gemara is going to start on Daf Ayin Aleph Amid Beis, 3 lines up from the bottom. We were just speaking about how in the case where a Yid borrowed money from a Goy and with Ribis, and as he was about, which is mutter, as he was about to give it back, another Yid wanted to borrow it from him. The Mishnah and it's also for him to give it to the Yid because since it's in his possession, he's responsible for it. So then it would be like one Yid lending to another Yid with Ribis. But if they all come in front of the Goy, who was the original Malva, then it's mutter, because if the Goy was consented, then it's as though the Yid becomes the shliach of that Goy in giving it over to the other Yid. The Gemara was bothered. Where do we see shlichus? Where do we see b'chlal? There's an Indian of shlichus, but that we know there's no shlichus for Goyim. We cannot be shluchim for them, and they cannot be shluchim for us. So the Gemara then wants to say, the bottom line, it says, Ravina Omar Mehidish Shlichus Lenachri Leislei. True, there might not be shlichus in regards to the Nachri for the Havmin was it at the time when in front of right. So there might not be shlichus for the first Yid, who was the first loiva, to give it over to the second Yid, that he would be acting as a shliach for the Goy. He might not be able to do that as a shliach for the Goy. However, zechia midurabanin eislei. But however, there should be zechia midurabanin that at the moment where the first Yid would give it over to the second Yid, so the second Yid would be like he's zeicha the money which the first Yid owes back. So he's zeicha for the Nachri. He's like, and since it's a benefit for the Nachri to be getting his loan back, so then he should be able to be zeicha. Why shouldn't one Yid be able to be zeicha? To be zeicha, to be kinda something for somebody else. So just as we see one Yid can be kinda something for somebody else, is if it's something which is a schus for him. So then one person, it's neither, it's a schus for him. You're allowed to be zeicha something for somebody else.
So this is the reason that it will be mutter, if it's zeicha. If there is no shlichus, so the second one is borrowing from the first one, because he's not a shlichus from the goy. But if he's zeicha, that's the question from the Gemara.
Yeah. So if the second one when he would receive the money from the first one, would be zeicha for the goy, so it would be then as though he's receiving it from the goy. He's zeicha for the goy.
Directly, the second.
What do you mean zeicha for the goy?
If you're zeicha from the first Yid would give it to him, and it's like he's paying, the first Yid owed the goy money, so he's paying back his loan. The second Yid would be zeicha for the goy, and the payback of the loan. He's zeicha because it's a benefit for the goy to get paid back what he gave out.
So he's benefiting the goy.
He's benefiting the goy. At that moment, it's like he's cutting it for the goy. It's back in the reshus of the goy. And that if he wants it, and if the goy is masking that he should have it as a loan, the ribis, so it's as though the goy is giving it to him directly. That would be mutter. So that would be maybe the way it should be working. How zechia midrabanan eislei. And how do we know that? It should work the same as the way we know that we can be zeicha for a katan. So midid havi a katan.
Rashi is saying that the first Yisroel, the first Yid, is zeicha for giving back the money to the guy. Yes, who has to give back the money for the guy? This is the problem. When he's giving back the money to the guy and he's paying the ribis, so he's paying the ribis. If he's direct paying ribis for the guy, no problem. If the second one is paying the ribis for the first one to the guy, then that is ribis. He's paying the ribis for the first one. But Rashi says the first Yid is Zoiche the money from the second one directly to the Goy. So, that's Rashi, Lushan Rashi. Ye Yisruel Zoiche le Zoich Nochi, Hilker Hau Yisruel, the first Yisruel, Zoiche le mit Rabunu Baal, Vuzim Yisruel Sheni. He is Zoichen from the second Yid for the Goy. The problem is not
Yisroel Rishon. The Gersa changes to Rishon. See, you read it like this: Zechir midrabanan Eisley. There should be Zechir midrabanan. Sheyeh Yisrael Zoicha litzarech Nachri. Should be able to be Zoicha. Should be able to be Zoicha for the benefit of the Nachri. Hilkach, since that should work.
Yeah.
Therefore, Ahu Yisrael. That Yisrael Zoicha lei midrabanan behalva zu Yisrael Rishon. So therefore, we're talking about the second. Yeah, but the Gersa changes it. If you look on the side,
what is the problem? The problem is not that the first one is giving the money, is lending the money for the second one. The problem is when the second one is paying back with Ribis. The problem is when the first one is paying back the Ribis to the guy, it's no problem. First, you can borrow Ribis from the guy, but with Ribis from the guy. But the second one is passing by the first one. So the first one is getting Ribis from the second G. If he's Zoicha for the Goy, if the first one is Zoicha for the Goy, not for himself, so the money from the second G is going directly to the Goy back. That's why I okay. He's Zoicha for the Goy. He's Zoicha for the Goy.
Right, but the moment that the first Yid will give it to the second Yid, so the second Yid is going to then, we thought that the first Yid would be the Shliach for the Goy, but he won't. The second Yid, when he receives it, he'll be Zoicha for the Goy, as though the first Yid had to give it back to the Goy. Now the second Yid is being Zoicha it for that Goy, and therefore, it's like the first Yid did his Hashava, gave back his Halva. The second Yid now, since he was Zoichet for the Goy, it's as though the Goy gave it to him directly, and there's no problem with a Goy giving a loan, Ribis, to a Yid. Then that would work. So that's the way we want to learn it. Right? So, Midrabanan. So it should be working this way. We should be saying that a Yisrael can be Zoichet for a Goy because we learn that by a Katan. Midida Habib, a Katan. Katan love, isn't it that Af al Gav delay slash Shlichus? Katan doesn't have Shlichus. Cannot be shlich for us. However, Eislei Zechia, we can be zoicha for the cotton, and even though top Rashi says Eislei Zechia, the cotton does have zechia. It's non zachin lekotten beperk mishmeis. We can be zoicha for cotton, even though that he cannot be a shliach. So, right. So too, just because normally when the person, in order for a person to be so we're saying that even though that we can still be zochah for someone, that even though that person that we're being zochah for cannot be a shliach for us, and we can't be a shliach for us, and we can't be a shliach for them. So too, just as the katan can't be a shliach, he's not b'tayra shlichus. So to the goy who's not b'tayra shlichus, we should also at least be able to be zochah for him. And that zochah should enable it to work by giving it over to the second yid. So that might be how it's working. So over here too with the goy and the two yidden, lo shana, we should say that it would work the same way. The lohi, the Gemara says no, that's not. We can't make that comparison. It's not necessarily true that we can say that the yid is being zochah for the goy. Rather, we have to say that katan osi leklal shlichus. That the reason why we can be zochah for a katan is because the katan eventually will grow up and become able to be a shliach. He'll come to klal shlichus, whereas a goy will never grow into klal shlichus. Na'akum lo asi leklal shlichus will never come to klal shlichus.
So we cannot zochah for him also.
So therefore, we can't necessarily learn that we're being zochah for the can we zochah yid can be zochah for a goy. And therefore, we are going to be left with somewhat of a problem how it would work when giving over to the other yid in front of the goy. We said as long as the first yid is giving over to the second yid in front of the goy, that it should be good because he knows it's working because he knows what's happening. But How is it working?
If it's not the shlichus and not the schia, so the second yid is taking the money from the first yid, and it's no connection between the second yid and the goy. So there is ribis.
Right, because we said if as long as it's standing in front of the goy, and the goy consented that it was
They
possible.
don't consent. And
Yeah, but so what good does it do when the goy consents? If he's either a
How is
shliach,
it work?
he's either a shliach
When
for,
it's not a shliach, not schia, how is it?
so it's left with a problem. So we have Raisatana Rabbanin, Yisrael Shalova Mais Min Anachri, Yisrael that took a loan from Nachri Beribis, Zokfin Olav Bimilva. So later, after originally the money was given over with no shtar, just with agreement, and later they came and they officialized the loan, writing it down into a shtar, and also declaring between them that there would be ribis paid back. That was Zokfin Olad B'milva in a shtar, and made it into a loan of ribis. V'nizgayer, and then the goy was nizgayer, so he became a yid. So im koydem shenizgayer Zokfin Olad B'milva. So if they may officialize the loan to be a ribis loan before the goy was nizgayer, so then he was still a goy. A goy is allowed to give ribis and to receive ribis from a yid. So then goyva es a keren, the goyva es a ribis, because the goy was the one who gave the loan. A goy is allowed to collect ribis from a yid. A yid is allowed to pay ribis to a goy. So since they only made it into a ribis loan while he was still a goy, so it should work. It should be fine. What? He's allowed to collect as a keren, to collect the capital, and also the ribis, because it was a ribis loan while he was a goy.
So even if he's a yid, he can still collect the ribis.
Even though
the
goy was at the time when he was still a goy, they officialized the loan into a loan of ribis. And then afterwards,
the loan and the ribis together.
Afterwards, it became a yid.
At
that time
the loan and the ribis in one loan.
Right.
So
after they made the shtar, he then was misgayer. He became a yid. He can still collect, because at the time when they made the loan, he was a goy.
It was so. It was he take a loan for 1 year, 100 shekel and 10% ribis. Yes. So after 1 year, he owed him 110 shekel, 100 from the loan and 10 for the ribis. And he told him, you know what? I own you now 110. I take it will be now a loan from 110. So in 3 months I will pay you the loan from 110. If you made this transfer from before he made this guy, it's after he's this guy. After this guy, it was a loan. It was a normal loan. If you did this transfer after this guy, so the ribis was already after the game.
Right.
So you put them together, the loan and the ribis, and they made from that one loan.
So that's as long as im le'achar shenizgayer zokfen olav b'milva goyve esa keren ve'eno goyve esa ribis. But if he was before he became a ger, before they officially made a official shtar that wrote the amount of the loan and also the ribis that would be collected, and he was already a yid by that time, so then he would not be able to collect the ribis, because he was a yid when they made up the shtar of ribis, and that's also for yidin. B'chein nachri, and we say b'chein nachri shaloiva ma'ois miYisrael b'ribis. So too, if a nachri, a goy, borrowed money from a Yisrael, right? He borrowed money from a Yisrael, b'ribis. Zokfin olav b'milva, and then they sometime later they officialized it. They wrote down how much the loan was for, and they added the ribis. So the nizgayer, im ad shlo nizgayer zokfin olav b'milva. If they first made the shtar with the loan and the ribis, and then he became a ger. So then when they made it, he was a goy. So goyva es a keren, v'goyva es a ribis. So he's the one that took the loan, and he can still pay the ribis to the yid. The im mishnizgayer zokfin olav b'milva goyva es a keren ve'eno goyva es a ribis. But if they he had already become a yid, and then they wrote loan down in the star with the ribis, then he will not be able to collect the ribis because he was a yid when they wrote down the star, which was also for yid to set up loans based with ribis. Rabbi Yossi Omer Nachri Shaloiva Ma'is Mi Yisrael beribis. So Rabbi Yossi was held differently. He said that if a Nachri will borrow money from a Yisrael, so bein kach gobe esa keren v'gobe esa ribis. Even if he became a yid before writing it all down in a star, you can still collect the ribis from the goy. Right? Why? So Omer Rabba, Omer Rav Pista, Omer Rav Huna, halacha ki Rebbe Yossi. The halacha is like that. Doesn't matter what time he became a ger. If he was originally a goy, and even afterwards they wrote down the star with ribis, even after he had become a yid, it doesn't matter. They can still collect the ribis. Omer Rabba, my time, and why should this be? My time of the Rebbe Yossi, Kadesh lo yomru bishvil moisav nisgayer zeh, so that they shouldn't say, "Oh, why did he become a yid?" Because he knew that if it was before they wrote the star, so if we would potter him from the ribis, so because it's also for him to take the ribis, he'll get just the keren. So maybe he became the yid in order that when they write it all down in the star, that he will be potter from the ribis. He won't have to pay the ribis. And if he became,
I thought the Nachri was the Malva.
they switch it. It goes either way because it's mutter for a Yisrael to take a loan from a goy and pay him ribis, and it's mutter for a goy to take a loan from a Yisrael and pay the Yisrael ribis. Right? It's mutter to go back either way. This is talking about the case where the goy took the loan from the yid, and that's right. So even if they had written the star while he was still a goy and then he became a yid, so still like that was also mutter to take the ribis. But even if he was already a yid, because and then they wrote the star, it would still be mutter to take the ribis because we don't want people to think that he became later. He was in this guy after writing the star in order. Or that before we want people to think that he became a yid just to get out of paying the ribis. Tana Rabbanu, we have a brisa star shikosa bo ribis. So